figured the killer had lured her there to the gym.
She was shot 3 times, twice in the back area and then once on top of the head.
And with the shooter aiming downward like that, that tells you something about the murder.
If a bullet is going to the top of someone's head, they were likely on their knees, and so she was executed.
When you actually looked at her social media account, you saw a whole different side of her.
You know, I learned she had a lot of friends. She was a mother. She had a young child. She seemed happy.
Her life ends in this dirty, abandoned gymnasium. It was very sad.
Hi, I'm Nancy O'Dell. Today's Crime Expose takes us to Monroe, Michigan. The Lazy Boy Furniture Company was founded in this town of 20,000 people and still has its headquarters there. It's also the early childhood home of George Armstrong Custer, shot and killed in the Battle of the Little Bighorn in 1876. 10 miles northeast of the city lies Boysville, a juvenile rehabilitation center that was closed and abandoned a decade ago.
The facility itself is kind of secluded. There's a couple of long driveways to get to the actual building. So if you're just driving by, you wouldn't really see it.
On a bone-chilling night in March, a bunch of bored high schoolers decided to roam the grounds for fun. But after they entered the vacant gymnasium, they found a cadaver lying on the floor.
There was no power, broken windows, it was unsecured, and they were exploring it, and they found what they thought was a dead body inside. So they called 911 and reported to troopers.
Michigan state troopers quickly arrived at Boysville. It was going to be a long night.
I saw a female, appeared to be in her 20s. She had some pooling of blood behind her head. She had what appeared to be some post-mortem damage to her face, likely from animals.
Just from looking, you can tell that it wasn't recent, that she'd been there for some time.
It was cold in there, so there was no heat, so her body was actually frozen.
So it's the middle of the winter, and this woman had been lying on the gym floor for who knows how long, and you had trouble accessing the building, right?
In order to get inside that area of the gymnasium, the stairs were busted, the railings were all busted, there was bushes growing that you really had to either climb to get around.
So because of all that, you figured the killer had lured her there to the gym and then dropped her where you found her?
So we just didn't think that she was murdered somewhere else and then brought to the facility, just because of how hard it would have been to carry a body over the railings and to place her in the middle of the gymnasium.
And what was your first impression as to the cause of death?
I assumed that originally she either had overdosed there or she had been killed and left there. And when we rolled over and we saw the large pool of blood, we suspected that she had been killed.
And later, the medical examiner proved you were right.
She had been shot 3 times with a .22 caliber gun. One of the shots went into the right side of her jaw and exited out the bottom side of her chin. One shot went into her back, and the bullet did not come out. And what was believed the third and final shot was at the top of her head, and that bullet was lodged inside her head.
Since the terminal shot entered the top of the victim's skull, the shooter was probably firing downward. And with the shooter aiming downward like that, that tells you something about the murder.
If a bullet is going to the top of someone's head, they were likely on their knees, and so she was executed, which would tell you that whoever was responsible was cold-hearted, and this was an extremely violent crime.
So who was this mystery woman, and why did she end up here? Biometric technology produced the first clue.
While we were on scene, we utilized a fingerprint scanner that one of the troopers who responded to the scene had. And with the fingerprint scanner, we were able to obtain her identity.
The victim had interacted with law enforcement in the past, and her fingerprint data was stored away. The database revealed her identity.
Her name was Kayla Sedoski.
Born in the city of Monroe, Kayla Sedoski was just 23 years old when she was shot to death on that frigid gymnasium floor.
She was estranged from many members of her family, including her son's father. She was homeless, and at the time of this investigation, she was living underneath a bridge.
So despite the horrible living conditions she was in, when you actually looked at her social media account, you saw a whole different side of her. What was it?
I learned she had a lot of friends. She was a mother. She had a young child. She was young. She was early 20s. She was from the Monroe area. From what I could tell from just looking on her social media sites, she seemed happy.
In addition to examining social media, investigators visited those who knew Kayla Sedoski best, her family and friends.
Everyone stated that they last spoke to her on February 15th. And she last spoke to her child's father when she was at a meal with some friends. And no one had spoken to her or heard from her after the 15th. And so it wasn't just one person or two person. Everyone stated that she stopped communicating with them.
As detectives continued to dig, the mystery behind Kayla Sedoski's death would reveal itself as a tangled knot of seduction and lies, an end and a heartbreaking epitaph for a life that had barely begun. The homicide of Kayla Sedoski was a shocking mystery. Her frozen body was found in a dilapidated gymnasium. Executed by handgun, the secrets of her murder were slowly being revealed to police.
We had to essentially go through what's called a victimology, where you learn everything you can about the victim by talking to their family, their friends, their co-workers, everyone who knows them, and you get a different perspective of that person from the different people that she knows in her life.
Despite being temporarily homeless, Kayla Sedoski had pursued her social life with great urgency.
She had just started dating someone about 2 weeks prior. His name was Louis Cutliff. That was the last phone call that she made.
She also made her social media a priority, posting regularly on Facebook to her many friends and to other love interests, including a man named Bryn Smith. Tell me about those online conversations between Bryn and Kayla.
They're going back and forth. She's asking if he really wants to be with her, and he's telling her that he does, that he really likes her.
And was Kayla showing an interest in pursuing a relationship?
She thought that maybe this is, someone who likes me, that wants to hang out, that wants to be my friend. So for weeks, you could see that they were messaging back and forth as friends and wanting to hang out together.
Bryn Smith was living with his cousin, Stephen Bales, coincidentally one of Kayla's former boyfriends. Police say Bales was just shy of being a cult leader, more like a sort of Peter Pan of criminal activity. He had assembled a small tribe of lost children to do his bidding.
So Steve Bales lived in a one-bedroom apartment with approximately 8 other people.
He was older, late 30s compared to everyone else involved who were young 20s.
He surrounded himself with people he could exploit financially and exploit them for their bodies. He was not working at the time of this investigation. It had multiple run-ins with law enforcement.
Any of these men could have been involved in Kayla's death, but so far, none of the puzzle pieces were fitting together.
We knew there's no cameras in the area. We either needed someone to come forward or we needed to get a break with something in the investigation.
That break came a few days into the investigation when one of Kayla's friends contacted the Michigan State Troopers.
She came forward and said that she had information about, who murdered her.
She had a recording of Kayla's ex-boyfriend and his roommate that she had talked to him on the phone, and they admitted that they had been at the crime scene when she was killed.
The ex-boyfriend was Stephen Bales, the roommate, Bryn Smith. What did Bryn say on that call?
Bryn was telling her that Kayla was shot and that, he knows because he was there. And then that's when he let it slip that he knows that she was shot 3 times, which was something that we never released to anybody.
When law enforcement talked to Bryn Smith, the would-be lover inadvertently backed himself into a corner.
We had not even released the cause of death So only someone who was there or was told by someone who was there would know that she'd been shot 3 times.
So basically, Bryn did a terrible job of trying to convince you that he had nothing to do with the murder of Kayla.
He lied multiple times. One of his lies was that he had not had any form of contact with Kayla Sedoski since Christmas Day, and we were able to show that he had actually been contacting her and had set up a date with her.
And what role did Stephen Bales play in all of this?
We probably received over 100 different tips about him being involved, but nothing that was actual evidence. It was just people calling in what they saw on Facebook or what they heard from people.
So far, it looked as if one of the people connected to Stephen Bales, or perhaps Stephen Bales himself, ordered the hit on Kayla Sedoski. A rogues gallery of potential killers was lined up and ready for a closer look. Police say Stephen Bales was the puppet master of this bizarre mini-cult, a handful of people, supposed friends of Kayla Sedoski, that might have been involved in her murder. Michigan State troopers launched their inquiry by talking to Kayla's boyfriend of 2 weeks, Louis Cutliff. He proved to be a weak possibility as the killer and was never a serious candidate.
No, not at all. He was, besides being the, last person that on the cell phone it looks like she spoke to, everything he told us, we were able to confirm.
He was calm, but he seemed genuinely upset that his new girlfriend had been killed. He advised that the last time that he had spoken to her was February 15th in the evening, and I was speaking to him on March 4th. So he realized something was wrong, but he wasn't sure if she'd been harmed or she just didn't want to talk to him anymore.
This brings us back to Bryn Smith, one of Kayla's love interests and the cousin of her ex-boyfriend, Stephen Bales. In the interview room, Bryn was horribly unskilled at outgunning the police.
Point out to him that he, with phone calls with a friend and his aunt, that he had divulged some of the details of the crime scene that we had not released public. He denied that he had talked to either one of them. I actually called his aunt during our interview so he could hear, and she verified that she had shared that information with me.
Oh, and I'm sure he wasn't too happy about that.
He eventually became very hostile during the interview, stated that I was a liar, and he stated he didn't want to talk anymore.
Facebook messages clearly indicated that Bryn Smith had asked Kayla Sedoski on a date, and that he had chosen a rather strange place for their romantic interlude, the now vacant Boysville Juvenile Detention Center just outside of town.
So he was telling her he's got somewhere where they can go. She was sharing her location with them, so you can see where she was at. And, we knew where she was last when Bryn Smith showed up to pick her up to where, he took her to Boysville for her to be murdered.
Kayla was really excited to be on a date with Bryn, as evidenced by her Facebook messages. And as he was driving her to Boysville to be killed, she changed her Facebook status to in a relationship with Bryn Smith. She's seeing him as a boyfriend, and he's literally driving her to her death.
On that night, Bryn Smith was also talking to Steve Bales, who had gotten married the day before, February the 14th, Valentine's Day. As he started a new chapter in his love life, Bales also wanted to erase his romantic past, starting with his old flame, Kayla Sedoski.
It just appeared that she once was part of their friend group, and they no longer liked her. They just wanted Stephen Bales just didn't want to have to deal with her in his life anymore.
What happened next was one of the sickest and most heartbreaking crimes we have ever examined.
On the day that Kayla was murdered, the investigation showed that a group of people from Steve Bales' apartment, specifically 6 of them, had plotted to kill her.
As Stephen Bales' new wife monitored a police scanner just in case, Bryn Smith picked up Kayla Sedoski for their date and brought her to the abandoned gymnasium at Boysville, where the other 4 members of the Bales group, all dressed in black, were waiting for her. There, Stephen Bales and his gang forced Kayla onto her knees, stood around the terrified young woman, and fired 3 pistol rounds into her body.
And then they just left her there.
And it was then that you singled out Steve Bales as the ringleader?
We believe that Steve Bales had coordinated the entire murder of Kayla. We have messages from Bryn Smith to Steve on the night of the homicide, right around the time we believe Kayla was killed, in which Bryn Smith said, "Dude, I can't find the gym." And Steve replied, "I can hear you coming."
And whether or not he was the shooter, Bale's behavior after the killing raised a lot of red flags.
He painted his Dodge Journey bright blue. He fled the state right after we believe Kayla was killed. And then when her body wasn't found, he returned. And then the day after her body was found in March, he fled the state again.
And the U.S. Marshals actually helped you out when you arrested Stephen. How did that all go down?
He was confronted by the U.S. Marshal. He had an 8-hour standoff in a residence in which he refused to come out, and they eventually had to use tear gas to have him come out.
In prison, at awaiting trial, Bales was indignant.
He started off just kind of telling us how much that he loved Kayla. And then once we started to present facts to him, he didn't want to talk to us anymore. So I think he truly thought that he was going to get away with this.
Eventually, the court had its say in the matter, and every last one of Stephen Bale's gang of murderers went to prison. Some of them even testified against each other. So that leaves one last question. Who was the one who pulled the trigger?
We believe that Kayla Ramsey was the actual shooter in the homicide, based on multiple witness testimonies and including people who were involved in the homicide.
And just like the rest of the Bales crew, Kayla Ramsey was supposedly a friend of the victim.
Kayla Ramsey denied that she had any conflicts whatsoever with Kayla Sedoski. In fact, Kayla described her as a sweetheart. However, voice message and then Facebook showed that Kayla Ramsey was swearing and accusing Kayla of threatening her son and stated that you're done several times.
So was it an argument between the two girls that led Kayla Ramsey to pick up a .22 caliber handgun and murder Kayla in cold blood? The Bales gang hasn't revealed the truth, and we may never know for sure.
So it's, a real life horror movie. It was disturbing to think that people are just capable of just coming up with a plan like that just because they don't get along with someone.
Kayla Sedoski, who hoped to find new love, instead found herself left alone to die in a derelict facility devoid of human life. And now it is time for today's Safety Spotlight. Online dating can be an exciting way to meet new people, but it can come with its own set of risks. When dating online, look for inconsistencies in the person's profile and communication, as well as any red flags. Arrange to meet in well-lit public areas and avoid secluded locations for initial meetings. If you feel comfortable, let a friend or family member know where you're going, who you're meeting, and when you expect to return. RAIN is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization and features many additional tips for safer online dating and dating app use. Visit rain.org for more information. For all of us here at Crime Expose, please join us next time and stay safe.